partners can understand one another through active listening, and the more they can express their feelings, what we said here, through turning towards one another, that's where you'll experience, that's where that concept of commitment, which is tonight's theme, commitment will come to Maisa, into the home, because you're using these skills, you're learning how to express yourself and understand one another, and therefore achieve more greater sense of attachment, and therefore you'll be fulfilling this concept of your commitment towards one another tangibly, through the sense of bonding, love, and relationship. Yeah?
But what about an apology? Shouldn't that really be the first thing the husband should say when he comes in late?
Well, of course. You can definitely say, I'm so sorry I was late. But yeah, that's the first step, for sure. But also you want to say, I see how hard it was for you waiting for me. You want to continue that with the validation. You want to let them know that you really heard them, that the person is heard. And that's what a lot of...
An apology without necessarily justification or explanation. I mean, like, I got tied up in traffic, or a customer came in at the last minute.
Oh, for sure, that's important as part of the discussion.
But it's like, where does that fit in? Should the empathy come first before the explanation? Because once you start explaining, in a way, the wife could say, but am I not more important?
Right. And therefore, you're strengthening the answer, you're saying the answer right, is really you need to focus mostly on the validation and less on the explanation. That really is the key, as I was mentioning before. You want to stay what we call emotionally focused. Stephen Covey wrote the book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit number 4 or 5 is seek to understand, then be understood. He brought that in the business world. Understand negotiating. Understand the person you're facing opposite. Understand them first, then be understood by him. Same thing in our relationships. First you want to jump and say what you call emotionally focused. What is the other person experiencing? Then you can introduce the whys and what happened to you before. But first you want to stick with them. And that regulates their emotions. It soothes your wife when you first feel what she's experiencing. Then you get onto your tirutzim afterwards. So it is important to stay emotionally focused. Yeah?
It sounds nice, but
it's hard.
By 7 p.m., you'll be coming off a 13, 14-hour day. I'm saying to have capacity to walk into the house and be ready to... I mean, empathy is a highly functional thing to do.
Yeah.
So when you're exhausted from a long day, saying, is that something you could discuss with your spouse beforehand? No. I think after time you can pick up patterns, like what sets you off, what sets me off, to say...
Oh, talk to you when I walk in the door?
Yeah. Very good. It's a really good question. 2 eitzahs I have. One is a bit of a cute eitzah, is that I heard a shir in Eretz Yisrael many years ago of a Rav who gave me some advice. He gave the group advice. He said, when I come home, it was a month, Israel Tauber, Tauber said this. He said, when I come home, before I go in the house, I park my car in the driveway, and I take out a shtickle mezainis, and I eat it with a little glass of orange juice, a little container of orange juice, and I get my blood sugar up before I go in the house. Tremendous advice. Regulate yourself physically, emotionally before you go. Number 2 is, and if I had your wife start telling that to them, but in actuality, there's another part of the story besides her empathy. It's the wife learning how to give their husband a little time when they come in the door. And women are so funny. Like my wife, she would say things like, my wife's very busy, a lot of kids going, she said, you think you're busy at work? What do? You sit there with a computer all day on the phone, looking at Drudge Report? Like, what do you do all day? So the answer is, she might be right to some degree, because I don't have kids on top of me, on me, jumping on me 12 hours a day. She might be right. But is she really right? Am I just sitting there flipping on the internet? Taking phone calls? What about my boss? What about my competition? What about the pressure? What about my, all the things we come home steaming from, the boss who's yelling, losing money, losing contracts, stocks going down. We're all dealing with all this, right? So I try to coach wives, and I try to say, something, when your husband comes home, you need to give him a few minutes to regulate. Just give him 5 minutes. Not giving him an hour, give him 5 minutes. I remember once I was, I will tell you a story, but the point is that If a wife would give the husband a little respect and a little bit of time to relax when he comes in, then she can jump on it after he says he's going to get to work. But give him the 5 minutes. Go to your room, turn on the radio, relax, read a book, pick up the sefer, come back, and then you'll help us. So that's what women have to do also. So it's not just the men being empathetic. Yes, it takes two to tango. But I do tell wives also. Give their husband a little space. Learn how to regulate his emotional affect. Upsetness, intensity, exhaustion, that we're all experiencing as well. They're both, attuned empathetically to one another's experiences. That's where you start experiencing a greater sense of attachment and closeness. Yes.
It's funny, we mentioned this actually as one of the topics of one of the previous seminars, workshops we worked on. One answer to your question also, though, is that number one, it happens to everyone. I think everyone here probably testified. You get home, everyone has a tough day. You walk in and you're facing a competitive exhaustion on both ends, and she's looking for you to say, "Oh, great, you're here, take the kids." And now suddenly you're tag teamed, and she thinks you're Superman, and jump in, and then she's going to go take her Calgon bath or whatever, right? And on the flip side, you're thinking, "Great, I can't wait." And she's going to give me my foot massage is ready, my 6-course dinner's ready. She's going to put the fan on. So we all have these crazy thought processes, but on the flip side, if you're smart enough to figure out that that's what happens every single day, and you could sort of then think through that. I mean, we have the capability as people, because we're here and all that, to sort of change that dynamic. And it's, everyone's waiting for the next person to make the move, but you can make a move. You can say, you know what, we're going to do this differently. Whether it's the Israel Taber idea of I'm going to sit in my car and eat my little thing first, or I'm going to pick a different time to come home, or whatever it is, there are ways to ever so slightly change the dynamic so that things don't happen that way. Or as my wife would say, maybe go home at 5 o'clock one day and you help put the kids to sleep, like that kind of thing. But there are ways to creatively think through not doing the same thing again and again and again, especially if it's frustrating the way it is for a lot of us. I know exactly this. Never done it. But again, I think it requires advanced planning and thinking to overcome these
and a discussion with your spouse to see what are the dynamics that are working all the time and how to change some of those dynamics and some of the techniques I mentioned. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I really greatly appreciate, we have something called the Shalom workshop. It's mostly for engaged couples and newlyweds and married couples. Please go to our website, shalomworkshop.org. If you have cousins, children that are getting married, we do these workshops. They only cost like $25. Doing it just as a registration fee. We give them a 4 or 5 to 6 hour workshop on how to have a healthy and happy marriage. This is not for couples with problems. These are healthy, young, or slightly older couples that want to make their good marriages great. And Mrs. Esther Friedman, somebody who lives in the neighborhood in Lawrence, she's one of the heads of this movement. So please contact shalomworkshop.org. Suggest people to come to our workshops. Thank you.